elizwe asinanto kwenza ngawe zithi ungubani igama lakho kanti zonke izinongo ezikhokhwa elizwe zithi ungunyaka abanawe uthethayo kodwa mabafika bavela phesheya banike ubunewune wade wanikwe nezindlu nemoto.
Brother President, Ohopa, Secretary General Tommy Blackman, Comrade Deputy President Faithful, the esteemed National Executive Council of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania, delegates, guests, brothers and sisters. Ease relate to Africa. I bring you greetings from the Central Committee of the African People's Socialist Party, from its mass organizations and membership, from our African brothers and sisters in the diaspora, especially those from the United States and London. Uhuru. Uhuru is the greeting of our party and movement. It's a greeting that was made popular by the Kenyan Land Freedom Army and Dedan Kimathi, the Kenyan Land Freedom Army, popularly known as Mau Mau. Uhuru, of course, is Swahili for freedom. And so in our party, we greet each other with this word. You should call our office any place in the world, you'd be greeted with the word Uhuru. We say Uhuru because we believe that freedom should be on the minds of African people 24 hours a day. Uhuru. Uhuru. A few days ago, I talked to someone from the South African press, and they asked me why was I here to be with the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania at this incredibly significant Congress. I didn't think about it at the time, but I should have asked the white woman why she was here. Because it seems to me I have more right to be here than she does. But I'll tell you why I'm here. I'm here in part because we are a party of principle. And because we've worked with the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania for more than 35 years. And we've worked with this organization in an uncompromising fashion. Even when it was popular in certain places in the United States for organizations to claim they couldn't decide who they should support. We had to support the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania because we witnessed the African National Congress give away our occupied Azania. We had to support the organization has done. And so it is a matter of principle, and it is a consequence of the work that this glorious organization has done that makes it possible for me to be here. I thank you very much for allowing me to come home to be with my brothers and my sisters here in Africa. Another question was asked to me by the media. They said, well, why do you think the Pan-Africanist Congress has not done so well in the elections? Well, I tell you, I know why the Pan-Africanist Congress has not done so well in election. There is no mystery. I was in the United States and I saw the most powerful imperialist country in the world do the work to get the ANC elected. I saw them do it. I saw U.S. President William Jefferson Clinton send his own campaign organizers to work for the African National Congress. I saw them do that. I saw the money and the experts who were sent here to work to organize in the name and the interest of the African National Congress. And as a consequence of the work that they have done, instead of now having a direct colonial state, we have a settler colonial, is to protect the status quo, the system that is in existence. As it was the responsibility of the apartheid state to protect the status quo, it is the responsibility of the settler neo-colonial state to protect the status quo. People who have spoken before me have talked about what this status quo is. It is a status quo where 10 or more percent of the population still own and control 87% of the land. So that this handful of white people here in our country own and control a land, a territory that is 4 times larger than the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland combined. Something is wrong with that. Something is wrong with that. Sisters and brothers, I want to be clear that when I speak, I do speak as the chairman of the African People's Socialist Party. I want to say that in the event that there are representatives of the South African media here, and I have to say that I am responsible for my statements and not others in the Pan-African Socialist Azania. It's necessary to say this because we have had an analysis of the reality here in occupied Azania for a long time. And we've understood for a long time that the fundamental question here is land. And now that you have a neo-colonial settler state, its responsibility is to maintain the status quo, and it will maintain the status quo by any means necessary. And one of the means by which it maintains the status quo is the electoral process itself. It's the electoral process itself. And so, from my perspective and the perspective of our party, while it is important to take advantage of any possibility of capturing political power, we say that a system that is established for the protection of the system itself will not easily allow for a revolutionary organization to ascend political power. The revolution in occupied up to now. In fact, the Black Revolution of the 60s was defeated militarily in the United States. You saw it. Many of you who are in this room know what I'm talking about. You saw the assassination of Malcolm X. You saw the assassination murder of members of the Black Panther Party throughout the United States. You might have heard the then Attorney General of the United States, John Mitchell, declare that by the end of 1969, the Black Panther Party would be destroyed. And if you did, you know that the United States government murdered at least 27 members of the Black Panther Party that year, arrested more than 700, and on December 4th, 1969, while he was sleeping in his bed, murdered Fred Hampton, who was the leader of the Black Panther Party in Illinois. And now, in the United States, after struggles led by black liberals, they created a situation that called for the end of segregation. In other words, in the United States, apartheid was defeated a long time ago. And we were hearing messages that our brothers and sisters in South Africa, occupied Azania, were fighting for the end of segregation here. I said, I don't believe that. That's insane. Because when you talk about segregation or apartheid, we are only talking about the form that the oppressive state takes, while it expropriates the value that is created by African workers, while it takes our land. And so they set up a system now where they give us the right to vote, and even when we vote, the vote doesn't mean anything. Look at George Bush, the biggest terrorist in the world today. He is in power as a consequence. After all the Negro liberals, all the black liberals told us that the way we should get free is to just vote. If you just vote, you can find freedom, they told us. And what we found is all the Africans went out and they voted for this other white man who represents another imperialist party in the United States. And after they voted and the other white man won numerically, the Bush regime stole the election by disenfranchising all the Africans who live in the United States. And I'm told this is what my people are fighting for in occupied Azania? I don't think so. I want to say that I've heard it said several different times that this Congress of the Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania is a crucial Congress, and I believe that is true. Not only because of what is happening here, and not because I think that the Pan-Africanist Congress should be about trying to represent itself as some credible opposition to thugs who are in power in the form of the African National Congress. I think that this is a critical Congress because these are critical times in which we live, sisters and brothers. When we look around us and we see the government of George Bush, the government of the United States, talking about making war against the peoples of the world, what we're looking at is an imperialism that is in serious crisis. It is in serious crisis. It is too blind to understand the nature of its crisis, or even the fact that it is in crisis. It is boastful and arrogant in its ability to send troops in the Philippines, as there are troops even now, U.S. troops in the Philippines. It is boastful and arrogant in its ability to send U.S. troops into Colombia in South America, as there are U.S. troops in Colombia right now. It is arrogant in its ability to send troops in Djibouti and Uganda, and its participation in making Rwanda a Holocaust occur. Its involvement in Congo, it is arrogant. And it talks now about attacking the people of Iraq, whom they have been bombing for 11 years already, where they have been responsible for more than 1.5 million deaths since 1991. But the question that it cannot answer is eat too much of anyway. And no matter how hard you work, no matter what you eat, you can't get any bigger. But the tapeworm is attached to your intestines, and it doesn't have to do any work. And no matter the fact that it doesn't do any work off your work, your labor, what you eat, it continues to grow bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Such the letters. You cannot talk this tapeworm out of leaving your intestines. You can't sing freedom songs to get it to leave. You can't go to the ballot and vote to make it leave. Because if it leaves, it dies. And this is the nature of imperialism. This is the nature of international white power. It has constructed itself of the misery and the theft of the resources of the peoples of the world. And all over the world, people are demanding uhuru. People are demanding freedom from one part of the world to another. And it is this crisis of transformation, of people struggling for freedom, that has made it necessary for George Bush to try and mobilize a military force that would bring back direct white power, direct colonial rule over the peoples of the world. This is what we're confronted with. This Congress occurs within the context of an imperialism in crisis. And this is one of the reasons that it is so important. And this is one of the reasons why we have to advance the revolution that will raise up the African working class, aligned with the poor peasantry, from its position of misery and poverty to its status, its historically required status as a new ruling class. That's why it is necessary. I want to say that the African National Congress hasn't ever had to fight alone, as we have fought alone. I watched them in the 60s, during the time when the Soviet Union declared that there were only 6 authentic revolutionary organizations in Africa. And the ANC was one of them. The PAC was not one of them. They said there were only 6 authentic revolutionary organizations. And they gave them money. They gave them organizational training. They gave them military training. They gave them ideological training. And they had a powerful international media that they used to win favor and friendship and resources for the African National Congress all over the world. All over the world. And now that they did. And now that the African National Congress, after Poco and Apla, and PAC has done so much work to start the crises that made it necessary for imperialism here to turn over the administration of the oppressive system to a neo-colonial party. And that's what has happened. The ANC has been given the responsibility of administering an oppressive system, and a system that speaks to the needs and aspirations of imperialist power all over the world. That is what it does. It is its administrator. The question before us is, when will we, those of us who are African internationalists, those of us who recognize that there is one Africa, one African people that must be united in order for Africa to be free, when will we stop fighting alone? Here are choices that we are faced with. We are faced with the question of whether we're in Azania. Are we fighting to make another Kenya? Are we fighting to do another Uganda, where black people are apparently in power, but the masses of our people suffer the worst kind of misery? I say no. I say that we have to unite Africans all around the but here. I have been to the squatters' camps. I have talked to the people in Soweto. I have talked to our impoverished masses who are living in one of the so-called 1.5 million, what they call houses, created by the ANC. I saw Maggie on television boasting about what he's done for our people with these houses. If the houses are so wonderful, why doesn't Maggie move into them? And here in occupied Azania, we have the Azanian front of the African Revolution. This is what we have. And what must happen is there must be a Kenyan front of the African Revolution. We must raise up the concept of Africanism so that in its consciousness, every African on the planet Earth recognize who we are and what our responsibility to Mother Africa is. Africa gave the world civilization. It is irresponsible of us to allow Africa to continue to exist under these conditions. I just want to say, brothers and sisters in growth, that I heard a man, C.R. James, on one occasion, say that the power, that the future of the world will be determined is in the hands of the African working class. But unfortunately, it is not in the heads of the African working class. It is our responsibility to change that. I'm hoping that we can enter into new relationships that demands a more principled stand by each of us. by each of us. I have a responsibility to support Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania. We have never quibbled about that question. Doesn't matter that the ANC is in power. You don't switch horses now that the ANC is in power. Doesn't matter. If we stand for principle, we are here because we see the future requires a unified Africa and the recapture of our land. We recognize that. We are hoping for more than 20 years now. In the African People's Socialist Party, and I've talked to Comrade Mokela and Uncle Zeph about this, that for more than 20 years now, we've worked to build what we call the African Socialist International, where African socialists all around the world who recognize that the future of African people is here, with a liberated, unified Africa, that we should work together to build a single revolutionary organization that can fight for the liberation of Africa everywhere on earth. When we talk about the African Socialist International, I want to be clear. We're not talking about that kind of old, dead, tired Pan-Africanism that would allow folk who one day are Pan-Africanists when they're not in power, but once they go into power, they're only concerned about the new territory that they have now been allowed to administer. I know I'm not supposed to say this because it breaks some kinds of political proper norms. But my organization built the first ZANU Solidarity Committee in North America. The African People's Socialist Party did that. We trained them, ZANU cadre, how to go out among the Africans in the United States and win solidarity and support for our struggle in Zimbabwe. We did this not as some kind of sympathy, because the birthright of my children is Zimbabwe and Azania, just as the birthright of your children. So this was not charity work that we did. We toured them throughout the United States. We helped them raise funds and did all this work. And then once they went to power, we can't find them anymore. I say that I am happy that Comrade Mugabe has made the move around the land question. I'm very excited about that. I'm sorry he waited so long. And I am trying not to be cynical in believing that he may have only done it now to save his own political hide, because the masses of people in Zimbabwe were taking the land anyway. So I don't be cynical about that. But I do have a question, because I read a newspaper article since I've been here. Brother President, I hope you forgive me. I know it's a big thing. I read a newspaper article since I've been here that said Comrade Mugabe was going to appear at the ANC convention. The ANC Congress. I hope that is not true. I think he should be here. I think he should be here as a matter of principle. Because we work with ZANU, because ZANU told us that they were Africanists, that they believed in a united Africa, where all Africans would come together and be able to enjoy the benefits of Mother Africa. How can they then go to the ANC, who says that Africa belongs to all who live here? There is no principle in that stance. I am sorry. I believe that we have to demand principle relationships among each other. We will not win unless we do that. We cannot be better ANC than the ANC is. We cannot run around trying to find this formula that will not upset anybody like the ANC does. I am telling you, the ANC has now got a copyright on Stalinism in occupied Azania. So you cannot destroy that copyright. What we have to do is stake out our base among the masses of the oppressed, as the Pan-Africanist Congress has done. And then regardless